Hi guys, it's Misty. Welcome to another card video. I have a really fun card to share. I used the Magic Picture Changer by Fawn, and I'm starting out here with a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and it's 3 3/4 by 8.5. I did a practice one there I was just showing you just to make sure I could get all the components working and make sure I knew what I was doing. So I made this for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. The theme is interactive and we are featuring products by Fawn. So I went ahead and used one of the dies in the set to line up where I wanted my first turtle to go. And I went ahead and stamped it out, and then I'm going to mask it off and I'm going to do some Copic coloring. Now, this is the first time I'd ever done this, so that's why I did the practice one. And the practice one turned out better than my finished one did, but I'll tell you what happened and what I would do different as I go here. I wasn't quite sure which images I wanted to use, so I had a couple different ones out here, and I'm just going to use my acrylic block to put them all on so they don't end up getting stuck to the back of things and then I lose them, because that has happened before. I've only lost one stamp, and it was this tiny little bow that I loved. It was, just like a little hair bow that you add to make a little critter like this, a girl critter and or animal. And I lost it, and I was devastated. I'm still devastated. It's the only stamp I've ever lost. So I'm masking off the bottom here. I'm going to just do some really easy ink blending for the sky and for the ground. I wanted to keep it simple. I mean, it's whatever you do in the first picture, you have to do in the second picture. And I don't know. I just wanted to keep the picture simple and then have all the fun bits be on around my picture changer. So I'm using the Pumice Stone Distress Oxide ink, and I just discovered that I actually really love this color. It's very similar to the Fog cardstock, and it matches very nicely with the Fog cardstock. So I think I'm going to be using that color more often. All right, really simple ink blending for the sky, and I'm going to just flip my mask around here and do some really simple ink blending for the bottom too. So this is just the regular distress ink and frayed burlap. I wanted the top of my ground to be a little bit brighter, or I wanted more of a crisp line there. So I just took another piece of Post-it tape, covered up my sky, and then that way I could ink blend from the top down. Be careful if you do this though, because I didn't make sure my Post-it tape was long enough. And so you can see where when I was ink blending from the top down, you can see on both edges where the Post-it tape was too short and the brown kind of goes up into the sky area. But I was thinking it was long enough. I'll insert a picture here because I'm a visual person. I'm trying to show you what I'm talking about here. So I was focusing on just what's going to be inside that pink frame and not realizing that that ground extends both ways. So we're off to where the trees are. I wasn't thinking about that. So, just make sure your Post-it tape is long enough or you're coloring far enough, I guess would be my advice. But with Distress Oxide ink, it's nice because, I just went over that area with the Distress Oxide ink, and it didn't make it disappear. It didn't erase it, but it just made it less noticeable. All right, so I'm just going to finish up some quick Copic coloring here. I wanted the front image, I wanted the colors to be kind of bland and boring, and then the inside picture where the turtle's happy again, I wanted those colors to be a little bit more bright and cheerful. Anything you go over with Distress Oxide inks, it'll give it like a chalky look. So even though I had a mask on my turtle, the edges where it was stamped, it got the Distress Oxide ink on it, and so it made the lines of my stamp look chalky. So I just took a Copic multi-liner, and I'm just going over that black line and making it bold again. So it's just the top part of the turtle though, where the distress ink was. And I'm using that die again to line it up to make sure everything's colored, and then I went ahead and cut it. And it has a score line on both sides. Fawn makes this super easy. These interactive cards, they just make it really easy. So I just folded it on the score line, And I'm going to use my bone folder to make it a nice crisp fold. And you'll see me using the anti-static powder several times throughout this process. It will make your slider slide easier, and it also, I was using it to get, you know, those little paper hairs that you get on your dies sometimes? I was using it to brush away those little paper hairs. They drive me nuts. So then you're going to take an 1/8 inch score tape and you're going to put it on both sides of that little flap. So I'm going to put it on the outer edge, and then I'm going to open that little flap up and I'm going to put it on the inside as well. And it's just the right size for the 1/8 inch score tape. It should fit nicely right on the inside of that score line. And if you don't get it perfect, it's fine. If you just use that anti-static powder, go over it and, you know, make it so it's not, the sticky isn't going to stick to your picture as it slides in and out. So now that I have my first picture done, I'm going to move on to the second image. And so I'm not just blindly coloring and ink blending. I'm going to cut down just the exact size that I need for my picture. It'll make it easier on myself. And then I'm going to pretty much do the same thing that I did with the first picture. I'm going to stamp it, mask it, ink blend it, and color it. And I'll cut all that out. But I'm going to use this die again to line up my second turtle. And I'm going to use the first picture, and I'm going to try to keep the ground the same level, and I'm going to try to keep the turtle at the same level as well, which I didn't do that great of a job. The second picture is a little bit higher, but that's okay. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see where my turtle is supposed to go, and luckily I lined it up with this again, otherwise my turtle would have been off the picture. I would have had just his back end in the little picture. So it's a nice guide to kind of help you see where your image is going to be. So like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and stamp out. This is my happy turtle now. And I'll do the same process, just different colors for the ink blending. I cut all that out because it's basically the exact same thing I just did, but I used tumbled glass distress oxide ink for the sky, and I used Shabby Shutter's distress ink for the ground, and then a little bit of the Lucky Clover distress oxide ink to give it a little bright pops of green in the grass area. So I'm just using my first picture to know where to line up my ground, because I wanted it to match up when you slide the picture. And I almost took off the wrong score tape here. So I want to take off, you want to take off the inside layer. You're creating your track. And so take off the inside layer and then close it. And that's your track. That's where that second window picture is going to slide in and out of. And then I went ahead and cut my second picture. And then, like I said, I'm just going to use the anti-static again, just because I want it to change smoothly. I used a little bit of Copic coloring on the brown ground just to give it a little bit of interest, because it was kind of bland looking. And here I left this part in because you might struggle with trying to get these interlocked into each other. I did on my practice one, and I had a hard time on this one as well. I'd get all the way to the last one, and then they'd all pop out, and I'd have to start over again. But that's what's supposed to happen. It does fit in there, I promise. So if you struggle, know that you're not alone. No, I shouldn't. It really is easy. I'm making it sound like it was really hard, but it was just more frustrating. But, you know, when something's new like that, it's like my hands were foreign and just trying to get it in place. You know, maybe you won't struggle as much as I did, but see now, I think when I used my bone folder, that's the only thing I can think is when I used my bone folder, maybe it wasn't quite on the score line because my second picture is really, really tight in the frame there. And it struggles a little bit to go in and out. My practice one was perfect. It was smooth. It goes in and out nicely. But this this one, and maybe it's meant to be that tight in there, I'm not sure, but there was no wiggle room on either side of my second picture there. So then I took off the tape on the other score tape, the top part, and it should just close together just like that. But you need to make sure that your picture's not going to stick to that score tape, otherwise it's not going to move at all. So just make sure it's in that track, and then once you take off that tape, just close it. Lawn Fawn, the die has the score line where it closes, so there's no guessing there. So it should close nicely. Okay, so now you do not want to put the score tape all around the frame. You only want to put it in the four corners, otherwise your picture's not going to change. Because see, it's going over some of the components that make it change, I guess. So only four corners on the frame. And I am loving this newer stamp set, or this newest stamp by Simon Says Stamp. It's the Scallop Waves. Lawn Fawn has a pattern paper that's similar. It has an image similar to this, and it has really pretty colors. It even has a rainbow one, but I didn't have that paper, so I thought this would be perfect. And I'm using the Mermaid ink by Lawn Fawn. I wanted a tone-on-tone background. I'm using the Sea Glass Cardstock by Simon Says Stamp, and I really love this color cardstock. I just had to order more because I love it. And it's a little bit off, but it's okay because the die I'm going to use one of the stitched rectangle dies by Lawn Fawn, and it's going to cut off that part that I missed. Love this background stamp. It looked like there was lines in it, but I don't know what that was about. But then, I don't know, it's not noticeable when it dried, so. And then I'm using the Fog cardstock as my background. And I believe this is the Guava cardstock by Lawn Fawn. If it's not, it's very, very close to that color. That's another one I need to order more of. Because I only had a sheet of it, but I think that's what it is. And then that little end piece acts as a stopper so that the slider won't slide out the other end of the card. Now I get to work on what's going to be around my magic picture changer. So I'm using the Grassy Borders die by Lawn Fawn. And I'm also going to use the trees from the Pivot pop-up die by Lawn Fawn. And they're the perfect size for my little scene here. I was going to use the stitched tree border and just cut the trees off, but the trees were a little too round for my little narrow strips here on either side of my frame. So these trees were just the perfect size. And now the stamps that I used is the Get Well Before and After, and now they have a couple different before and after stamp sets now, and they are all adorable. Love this one. It has really cute little images. So one of the images is a bird, a sick bird, or a bird with a broken arm, and then, a healthy bird. So I thought the healthy bird would be perfect. It has a little nurse hat in the stamp set. And so I just put the little nurse hat on my bird, and I'm going to add him to my little scene. It's the little detail stamps that I love about this set. It has like a little Band-Aid, which I'll show you I put on the inside. It has a little RX bottle and like the nurse's hat. Some really, really cute little detail stamps. And I'm going to add a little bee from the Be Mine stamp set, but I think I did that after the fact, so I don't think that'll be on here. So now I'm going to put everything together now that I kind of know where I want everything to go. Got to have the sentiment. There's a couple options for the sentiment too, which I like. I like that there's a couple options. And I'm just going to white heat emboss it on some black cardstock. I tried it on white first, on white cardstock with black ink, and it just didn't stand out enough. It needed something bold down there at the bottom. And then I'm just going to go over it with my cleaning cloth and wipe off that anti-static powder. And I'm not even worried about it being all, what's the word? You know, when you heat set it and it curls your paper, once you run it through the die cutting machine, it flattens it nicely. So I always forget about that. So I have the Fog cardstock as the base. And the Fog cardstock, see, it goes nicely with that pumice stone in the background of my little picture changer there. The colors go nicely together. I think the pumice stone is a little bit warmer color, but they do go nicely together, especially with this pretty aqua color. Fog and aqua are always going to be my favorite colors, I think. These two colors together. And then I use the same stitched rectangle from Lawn Fawn to cut my grass so that it had the matching stitch around the edge. And then on my practice one, I did one layer of foam tape on the back, and it wasn't quite enough to get your finger in there to pull on the little tab, so I went ahead and added another layer of foam tape. I used a bunch, I had some, some scrap pieces of foam tape wrapped around my big, huge roll of foam tape, and so I used a bunch of those up on the back of this. Worked out perfectly. You know, you save those little pieces or you cut it in half and then you have half of it that you didn't use, and I always wrap it back around my roll, so it was time to get rid of some of those. And I know this is old news, but I am loving this Gina K Connect glue. I'm never quite on trend with things. I'm always a little bit behind the times, but eventually I do catch up. Usually. I know Lawn Fawn makes a glue like this too. I haven't tried that one. Alright, I'm going to use 2 foam squares to pop up my little nurse bird here, so it matches the thickness of my picture changer. And then I totally forgot to add glue to the rest of the bird, so I'm just going to lift it up and squeeze a little bit under there. And then to finish it off, I'm just going to add a little bit of detail with my glitter pen, the Spectrum Noir glitter pen. And then I want to show you, I love these stamp sets that you can put words together, and you can put them together all in a line and stamp it once. You don't have to stamp one word and then stamp another word so that it's close together. With these Lawn Fawn stamps, the stamps are sticky, which helps too, but they are so close together and they just stick together. And I did a little practice one, but it doesn't look like there's gaps in between the words. And I love that about these sets. So you can interchange some words and stamp them all at once, which is really nice. I made this card for my aunt who just got out of the hospital. She had a really bad kidney infection, so it was a perfect time to make a get well card. And these adorable little band-aids have these even more adorable little hearts that go in the center of them. I love it. I think it's very cute. And that's it for me this week. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you have any questions, because while these interactive cards might look intimidating, they're really easy to make. So I hope you guys will give it a try. All of the supplies that I use are listed and linked in the description below. And if it won't fit there, because sometimes it won't, I'll have everything listed over on my blog with additional information in case you'd like to join us for this week's challenge. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.